Hi, I am State Senator Michael Moore, and I am here this afternoon with Katie Toomey, who's running for the Registrar of Deeds position for Worcester County, or is it actually Southern Worcester County?
It's called Worcester District South.
Worcester District South. So we thought this would be a great opportunity for everyone to get to know Katie and also actually to learn what the Registrar of Deeds actually does, or what the registry actually handles for us. So, Katie, I think this is your first time running for office?
It is. I am a first-time candidate.
And how does it feel?
I feel like I bit off on a giant cookie. 55 cities and towns. I think I probably should have started smaller, but I think it's been great. I've met really cool people.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. What do you find the most interesting part about it?
The broad spectrum that Worcester County has. You go from the rural parts of the western part of the county to the urban parts of Worcester to the Metro West, as you will, and the different values and the different personalities. But most importantly, everybody understands their biggest asset besides their family is their home, and it's kind of interesting. There's a universal theme.
Yeah, actually, if you think about that, that's really most people's biggest investments besides their children.
Correct.
It's their home.
Correct.
So, if we were to try to figure out what the registrar does, what does the registrar?
What is that magic job that nobody knows about? The Registrar of Deeds is a person who oversees the office that manages all the land title documents. So when people say, "Oh, my house is there," well, it's not really your house; it's actually your lawn. It's going to be the deed of the land that your structure sits on. It could be farmland. It could be the highway you drove on. But every speck of land within the 55 cities and towns is properly recorded at the Registry of Deeds.
So what do you mean properly recorded?
So when people come in, there's everything from plans when roads are going through and all the way to actual deeds when you section portions off. And when I say properly, that's me kind of giving myself a bolster of saying, I'm qualified for this job. So okay. I'll give you that outlet.
Well, what is your experience that makes you qualified?
Thanks for asking. I have been an attorney for 18 years, and for the last 12, I've owned my own practice. The last 13, I have concentrated about 80% of my day on residential real estate transactions. I represent buyers, sellers, and lenders on completing title work, which is the term of art we use for researching the history of a piece of land.
Why is that important?
Well, in Massachusetts, we have what's called the Clear Marketable Title Standard. So when you go and you buy your first home, you're going to hire, if you're taking out a mortgage, you're going to hire a lawyer, and they're going to go back and do what's called a title exam of 50 years. They're going to look at the records at the Registry of Deeds, the probate court, and the bankruptcy court. And they're going to look at the history of the land, who's owned it, who's put liens on it, has any parts of it been transferred out, all those situations. And under that standard, when you transfer a title, it must be clear and marketable so that there's no encumbrances on it, so that you can have it free and clear.
Okay. Well, I guess if I'm coming into the Registry of Deeds and I have a question on that, why is it? Do you have staff that knows that, or is this something that you would be the
staff,
person that would make the call on
the
this?
staff now is well trained. We have our current Registrar of Deeds, Tony Vigilati's been there 46 years, and we have a wonderful office, and they're well trained. But they have what's called the indexing guidelines. So they are accepted by by statute by the Secretary of Commonwealth, and they have what's called the indexing guidelines. So all documents are recorded in that way. But when you go into the Registry of Deeds, they will help you on a customer service basis, introduce you to the computers and the different ways to look stuff up. We're actually 100% online now at the Registry of Deeds. It used to be books, ledgers, if you will.
Are all Registrar of Deeds that way? Or?
They are all online now. You can go to masslandrecords.com statewide and look up your individual district or county.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, you could go in and ask questions, and they will guide you on looking up documents. You can also do it by email and by telephone. One of the things I'd like to see when I become the Registrar of Deeds is to actually have a little bit more accessibility to that. I want to see the documents actually have hyperlinks, so that if you go and you look up your deed when you bought your home in your hometown, you want to see who bought it before, instead of just taking a scratch pen and paper and write down the book and page and then toggling back, you could actually hyperlink and hit it, and it would bring you to the next document in the successive previous order.
Why is it important that the registrar be experienced in, have knowledge of this field, and not your staff?
Absolutely. The reason is every document that is recorded is a legal document that becomes a permanent record. So sometimes one situation might be somebody had a deed notarized in West Virginia where they may do electronic notarization. and it comes to Massachusetts, we do not observe electronic notarization, but in West Virginia it was properly notarized. So when stuff like that comes up, you want to have a lawyer or somebody who has experience with handling, looking those things up and working with those things. Every document must comply with what's called the indexing guidelines, and it needs to comport and complete with that. And sometimes people will come in and say, oh, but it's okay, you can just record this. And the staff will always defer to the register and say, this person's trying to record this, but it doesn't really comply. What are your thoughts on that? Okay. And there's a lot of times the current registrar, who's also an attorney, will go through the laws, the statutes, and the indexing guidelines and see if it does comply and what the situation handle with that is. Not every document is recorded that way, but a good number are.
Okay. Couldn't the staff just call this? Now, it's overseen by the Secretary of State's office.
Correct.
Couldn't a call just be made there, or?
No, the buck stops at the Registrar of Deeds. Okay. The Secretary of State does oversee it, which makes it a little bit of an odd position because it's an elected official answering to an elected official. But the situation is there's nobody really to call. There's no staff attorneys. There's nobody there that's going to be available to answer that question. That's why you rely on the registrar himself, his or herself.
All right. How many registrars are there right now?
I believe there's
for every
8.
county?
I think there's 8 out there. Yes.
Do you also do commercial? No, so this would include commercial.
Everything. So I'm really excited about the Woosocks because think of what's going to happen in Kelly Square. Yeah. I think that's important to have somebody that's going to handle the redevelopment specific to Worcester. I mean, there's other things going on in other communities, but I'm a Worcester resident, so I think you're going to see a lot of changes with all the dramatic changes of Kelly Square, both the intersection, the structures, the building, all that stuff. That's all going to get recorded.
So as you're out in the street meeting people, what's your message that you're giving them on why you should be elected to the seat?
I'm excited about this seat because I think it's a basis for education. I think people can learn a little bit more about land title. Some people have actually sit in the registry and do genealogy. There's different things you can do, but I think people don't understand the job. It's been kind of status quo for a lot of years, and I think that it's something that's underutilized. It's kind of like going to a library. And I would like to have people have more accessibility to the Registry of Deeds, not only just learning how to use mass land records, but also working with the Secretary of State to update the, like a phone app, because the one on the phone is not very user-friendly. Okay. But also,
you have a phone app now for this?
No, you just it's like a regular web-based one, so that's why it's not pretty on your phone.
Okay.
I think that's what needs to be done.
Okay.
But a lot of times realtors will call you and say, I'm out on the road, we just did a closing, have you recorded yet? I can't find it, or I can't see it because the application doesn't work well.
So if you were to provide someone with the wrong advice on the closing, what does that mean for that title?
Oh, if somebody records something inappropriate?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be fixed, and it's called dirty title. So that's not pretty, and it's not inexpensive to fix. A lot of times things will get misrecorded. Things will get recorded in the wrong place, make the wrong connotation, have wrong information on there, and it needs to be fixed. There are human errors out there. I'm sure it happens every day, but if somebody went and recorded, say, a fraudulent deed,
right,
what happens? That's the big question. That seems to be the big question right now, because there was an incident out in Cambridge in March where a senior citizen received a knock on his door from somebody who said, I'm here to change the locks. And the gentleman said, but I own this house. And he says, no, you don't. Here's my deed. It was fraudulently recorded, fraudulently notarized. All of it was complete fraud. Let me just be first to tell you, not to cry mass hysteria. A fraudulent deed does not convey property. That's Massachusetts law. So everybody says, don't hit the panic button. The next call would be to the authorities, police, Maura Healy, Joe Early, one of those people, to say, we've got a situation. Because that gentleman in Cambridge still owned his home, but the authorities had to seek out the people who had tried to steal his home by creating a false document.
I think I interrupted you when you were talking about what you want to do if elected to the office.
I could
the phone app.
So. Yeah, phone apps. I'd like to hold office hours. Having now done this, I grew up in Holden. I live in Worcester. I now realize on a regular basis, now that I've been campaigning so actively, how far it is to different parts of the county. Milford's 27 miles one way, 52 miles round trip. you want to have you want people to be able to be accessible to you. So I think I would like to hold office hours, whether it's like Milford, Southbridge, Sturbridge, the bigger communities, and maybe alternate into some of the smaller communities, whether it's at a senior center or the assessor's office that has a relationship with the Registry of Deeds. But be there a couple hours once a month and say, hey, I'm posting that I'm going to be here. Do you have any questions? Did you get anything in the mail? Did you have a question on how mass land records work? Do you have a question about how land's recorded? Anything like that. And I think that that's a start for education as well as seminars.
Do you have branch offices throughout the county, or is it just the one office?
There's only the one. It's in center of Worcester.
Really?
Yes.
So none of the courts or so all the attorneys have to come in and record everything there?
So attorneys e-record generally.
Okay.
Some still live record, but you can e-record. We do it through a third-party vendor. They do allow some people who record on a frequent basis to also do that, but the average citizen cannot. That's another thing. If we could work with getting kiosks or access through your town hall. So say you live in Athol.
Right.
And you got a discharge to your home equity line. Instead of, you could always mail it in with a check, but if you could go to your town hall and they scan it in and e-record it and you pay with your credit card, wouldn't life be a lot easier? And you know the document, which is original in its format, got there and got properly recorded. Ideally, that would be something I'd really like to see happen.
Okay. So what else do you think? What else be part of the?
Back to the theme of education, I've always done some educational things at some senior centers and some young and old. I've done different things, but senior centers on the homestead law. I think people need to know it a little bit better. You know, being a closing attorney, I get a lot of calls from people saying, hey, I know I'm supposed to have a homestead, but what the heck is that thing? I get that question every day. I actually had a friend of mine call me the other day and said, I think I have one, but what is it? And can you explain to me why I have it? So it's nice to have, you know, kind of a seminar format where people can come and ask questions about things like that, how to record that, what it costs, what does it cover? Can I homestead my house if it's in a trust? Can I homestead my house if it's just owned by me? What if I have a spouse that doesn't go on the deed, and all of that?
So how would someone find out about that now? Is it
if they know about it, or
if they heard about it, or if they wanted to find out about?
Right now, Mr. Vigliotti does have a webpage, Mass Registry of Deeds. I think it's Mass RODs, RODS. And he's got hyperlinks with the statute there, the homestead statutes, Mass General Law, Chapter 188. He also has some information and available on that. The other thing I'd like to do is blog. I think that we could have weekly or monthly newsletters on things that are going with cases that change, consumer issues, 93A, which is the consumer protection law.
Okay.
You know, when you hear a slippery contractor that does something to someone and things like that, I think that's something people want to hear about and get a little vibe on how it affects their land ownership.
Right.
Big question is solar panels. Solar panels.
Okay.
That's a big question.
All right. I know there was an issue with resale. Is that?
A lot of people have a resale or refinance issue. If you get solar panels, do you lease them? Do you buy them? All those different things. Most people don't realize when they lease solar panels, the solar company goes and records what's called a UCC financing statement, and it goes right on their title. And they don't necessarily tell you or send you a copy of that. And frequently when I do refinances for lenders, I will call and say, I've done a title exam and you have a UCC financing agreement with Sunrun or one of those companies. And they say, well, what does that mean? And I say, we have to contact your solar company. We need to remove that financing agreement, put your mortgage on, and then put that back on behind it, because the mortgage is always the priority lien holder.
I don't know what the applicant for the loan or the solar equipment told this before they purchase it?
I don't know. I don't own solar, but I'm guessing not. I've heard lots of people say I had no idea. So that leads me to the other really cool thing that Secretary Galvin did, and actually Attorney Vigliotti is one of the first ones to jump on. We have what's called a Consumer Notification Service, CNS is what they call it, and it's going statewide. Only certain districts had signed on originally. You can go to the Registry of Deeds webpage for Worcester County and hyperlink, and you can sign up so that you can put, I live at 27 Keach Ave in Worcester. I could put my address in because my name's on the deed, and if anybody ever tries to record something, I will get an email or text alert, however I set up my account, that says somebody recorded something so that you don't have to check on an everyday basis.
Okay.
Kind of a cool little tool.
Yeah.
And they're rolling it out statewide, I believe, in January or February 2019.
So this would be anyone who files a...
If you have a deed, if you
Yeah.
own property,
Right.
you go in and say, I live at XYZ Smith Lane.
Right.
And I'm on the deed, and it verifies that you're the owner, and then you sign up for this thing. So if on, let's say, November 22nd, somebody goes in and records, you put solar panels on your house, and somebody records a UCC financing statement, you're going to get an email that says, hey, Mike Moore, somebody put something on your property at XYZ Smith Lane, and you can go look and see what it is. It's kind of like a credit report texting you saying your credit card was used, so that you can keep track of it, because otherwise you're not going to know unless you check on a regular basis.
I was going to say, I would think 90% or 99% of the public, I mean, you
Have
purchase
no-
your house,
Yeah,
and then
you think it's fine.
there's nothing, yeah.
Right. I've been out for the last 8 months doing this. Maybe 5 to 10% of the people I've met, the voting people, knew about the consumer notification service.
So this would be something, I guess, a concern with the data breaches that we've had, or the hacks. that
People worry about the fraudulent deeds. That's the big news story right now, because that's the white collar crime that's coming up. People are trying to steal other people's property. What they do is they go and record a fraudulent deed, and then they go take a mortgage out, and they try to start stealing money and stacking stuff on property they don't technically own.
That's interesting.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. So what else about the campaigning? The political life.
Political life. It's been very social.
Okay.
I've been to a lot of fairs. I've been to a lot of, I, as a business owner, I've owned my own business for 12 years now. I go to a lot of Chamber of Commerce events because I feel I not only do I understand the homeowner's perspective from all my closings, but I understand the people who own businesses. So I've just been kind of great. It's been great educational. I feel like I'm a teacher, which I never thought I'd be in that position. So it's kind of crazy. So I've been out and about. I decided to try to do this in February, started collecting my signatures. I was officially on the ballot in May, and that's kind of when I kicked it off. I had a kickoff party in June and said, here I am, and announced myself to the world, and spent my summer basically just trying to meet people. I have not really left Worcester County in 8 months.
I know the first time I ran, when people would say, okay, you get the election coming up, and you've got to target 30,000 people,
Right.
or 50,000 people, and you sit back and say, how do I ever outreach to that?
Mine's about
I mean,
108.
Okay. So how are you doing it?
A lot of it's word of mouth. It's great. You know, I think being at a stage in my life and a stage in my business that I've known enough people that a lot of it's word of mouth, and I don't know how people did it before social media. I'll tell you that too, because
yeah.
a lot goes through social media. You know, my mother always told me if it's on the internet, it's there forever. So you learn, but you put stuff out there and you tell them about your qualities, and they share it with their friends, or they read it and, you know, store it in their brain for later. So that's been a huge help.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Debates? You've had debates, or?
I actually have not. I've written a letter to my opponent. I was unopposed in my primary.
Okay.
I'm on the Democratic ticket. There were 2 Republicans. It was whittled down to 1. Soon after the primary, I actually sent her a letter to the address on her ballot that she's filed with the Office of Campaign Finance, and asked her very politely. I said, you know, it's interesting. 46 years one person has held this job unopposed, and there's 2 females running for it. I find it interesting.
That is
It's one of
very
the only
interesting,
races
yeah.
that's 2 females. And it would be the first female, one of us will be the first female ever in 287 years of Registry of Deeds to be running it for Worcester County.
Now, has there been a female registrar in any of the counties?
Yes, North Worcester County is a female,
Okay.
Hampshire, there's a few others, Middlesex, correct. So we'd be the first for Worcester District. And so I said, you know, I think it'd be great for the people to see their options and have a panel discussion. Have people have a forum, have people ask questions, get people to know what the Registry of Deeds is and what our qualifications are and why we feel we'd be the best match for it. Almost like a live job interview. She failed to respond to my requests.
Okay.
I followed up with some emails. So sadly, didn't happen.
Have you spoken to any legal associations or groups about the race, or?
I mean, I'm a member of the Worcester County Bar Association, which
Okay.
is a membership of attorneys that just kind of work collegially together. It's almost like a mentorship program and different things like that. And they've been active in helping me and spreading the word, and friends within the legal community. Like I said, I've been practicing law 18 years in Worcester. Gives me a little bit of help with knowing the lawyers.
So do you practice when you're doing your land transactions? So primarily Worcester, do you go to Middlesex and other counties and
I do.
have a comparison to see?
I do. Middlesex, I'm not a fan of.
Okay.
Just because, the ride to Cambridge is not easy. Lowell, North Middlesex is a little bit easier. Every register runs their office slightly different.
Okay.
There is a little bit of freedom underneath the Secretary of State's office, but we all follow the same rules and guidelines of indexing. But as far as the management of the staff, there's a little bit of leeway. But Worcester is one of the largest because of the size of the land. You have to have the biggest staff.
Okay.
You know, like
Middlesex not a larger county than?
it's larger in population, but they don't have as many towns because it's split in two.
Oh, okay.
Our county is split by North Worcester County only has 5 cities and towns. We have
Okay.
55, so we see a lot more records because of the volume of land.
Oh, okay.
Like the Hampshire Registry of Deeds only has, I believe, it's 6 employees, which is in Northampton, Massachusetts.
Okay.
So everyone's different, and that's one of those things. But here's an interesting fact that I learned in all of this process. Disaster plans. Would you ever think the Registry of Deeds needs a disaster plan?
No.
I didn't either until we had the explosions up in North Andover. So
Okay.
because of all the gas explosions for Columbia Gas, they actually shut down a lot of the government buildings because they were afraid the government buildings would blow, and they shut them down for several days. Just because they shut down the Registry of Deeds doesn't mean that transactions don't occur. Things need to happen. People need to buy their houses. What do?
That's a good question. What did they do?
They went to the South Essex Registry of Deeds, which is Salem. So they actually have a protocol where they can record at another registry, and it's all built into the plan so that people know how to find the documents between the two. Similar thing happens to Worcester County. Right now, the plan is to go to Fitchburg to North Worcester County.
Okay.
But that's definitely something that you don't think about as an average person. But if, let's say there was a fire. Let's say there was a fire at the Registry of Deeds and the building was demolished, but the records were secure in some computer block somewhere off site and reserve, but you physically needed to go and record. Where do you go? Those are things people don't think about, but you got to be prepared for that.
So now that you've had the opportunity to see go to all these other registrars or registries, does that help you with the changes you want to make
Yeah.
at the Worcester?
Absolutely. I've maintained a nice relationship with Dick Howe, who's the registrar up in North Middlesex, which is in Lowell. He's actually an avid historian for his region, and he does walks and he does different things about the buildings, and that's kind of his spin-off from actually being the registrar, and he's a former criminal defense attorney. So he's been the registrar since the late 1990s, but he's really kind of come into his own in property document management and into the history of all of that. So it's kind of fun. I mean, he does that on his own time, supplementing to his office, but it's kind of fun to see how people have kind of taken offshoots from that and how his staff works with it.
So do you think this job is more just the administrative or managerial abilities, or do you really need an in-depth knowledge of land transactions, real estate process, sale, and?
Right. I think it's a combination of the two. I think managing people is big because there's a staff of 24, and you want to make sure that they're happy, which then relates to the customer service and that the people walk in the door get good service and are happy.
Okay.
I think that is important, but in the overall scheme of things, if something is done wrong, it's going to be very costly and timely. It's going to be time consuming to fix it. And I think that the leading edge on this job is to make sure the legal documents are done properly and recorded properly that are received by that office. And when there's anything that's called into question, there should be someone there that knows how to answer it.
Okay. So when you look at different campaigns, when people are running for office, and I guess everyone's talking about their qualifications.
Correct.
Would you say more so for this job than other elected positions? It's vital that you have someone who knows the position or the responsibilities?
I think it's interesting with this job. I don't think this is a job you want to start in January and learn from the bottom up, because I think that the magnitude of the job, the salary that that correlates to the magnitude of the job shows that you need somebody that has skills and qualifications. I think that I would, as a voter in Massachusetts, I wouldn't want someone to have this job and say, okay, how do I get trained? I haven't been to the registry in 3 years. I don't own a home. What does a deed look like? To me, that's not right. I mean, this is a job where people depend on it every day, Monday through Friday, and its closings happen all day, every day. And you don't want someone coming in saying, oh, I don't think that we should do it this way and change it up. I think that would be devastating to the office. So I think having somebody who's qualified that knows what the legal chain goes with the documents and then can implement the business and the innovative ideas to piggyback on that would be the best solution.
Okay. So when now the election is November
6th. Yeah, 2 weeks from today.
Well, actually, people can start voting.
Correct. They
yesterday.
can start. I saw people voting yesterday, October 22nd to November 2nd. I believe there's some Saturday hours this Saturday, the 27th. I don't know if there's Sunday hours. I do not believe so. But I don't know that. Depends on the town.
So what are you planning on doing election day or next?
Well, the next 2 weeks is me making sure people that I've met remember to vote. They call it get out the vote, but also maybe some people I haven't met that I've been trying to crisscross the county and say, you know what, here I am. Think about this. This is an important job. It's been flying under the radar for 46 years. Mr. Vigliotti has not had an opponent in 46 years.
Wow.
Correct.
Really?
I believe it's about 46 years. So he's been the only name that people don't realize it's been an elected or could be a contested position. So it's an open seat with two very different backgrounds. And I think that it's time for people to step up, do a little web research. You can check my webpage out at toomeydeeds.com.
Well, I was just going to say, we've got a minute 20 left.
Okay.
Make your pitch.
Great. Yeah, no, I feel like I'm ready. I'm qualified and ready for this job. I have been preparing for years. I thought law school was tough, but campaigning might actually be a close second. I'm available at Toomey Deeds. You can find me on Facebook. My personal page is open to the public, but I also have Katie Toomey, Registrar of Deeds. I actually had a voter from Athol asking me questions today about the registry and how it functions. So obviously my trip to Athol last week made a touch on somebody and prompted him to ask me repeated questions today. We actually had a conversation back and forth. So I am out there. I can be reached, and I'm happy to answer questions, and I hope that people think to vote for me in November because I'm ready.
So I guess we'll leave with, you want to have a blog. Does that mean you're going to be tweeting out every day?
Not every day.
No? You're not going to have tweets
I don't
that
know
we
if
can
people
all...
want to hear from me every day. No. I just want people to know about it. I mean, I hate to sound like a geek, but property law is cool.
Well, I don't know. It's important. I don't know about how cool and exciting
Cool to
it is.
me. It's cool to me. So,
But
yeah.
we got 7 seconds left. I just want to thank everyone for tuning in.
Absolutely.
And hopefully you'll consider voting for Katie Toomey for Registrar of Deeds. I think qualification matters.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.